Well, talk about the 2023 budget. Industry leaders are confident the International Monetary Fund program will help restore macroeconomic stability. That's according to a survey conducted by accounting and auditing firm KPMG, dubbed the 2023 pre-budget survey. Now, some respondents suggested that the program should emphasize debt sustainability whilst also promoting inclusive and long-term growth. Respondents also expect a review of the electronic transaction levy to allow more people pay. Joining us to dig into this further is Head of Markets and Advisory at KPMG, Andy Akoto. Thanks so much for your time. What did you seek to establish by this survey? What work went into it?
And thank you for giving me the audience to engage with your listeners. The survey, as we do it annually, seeks to solicit inputs from the business community, particularly a large segment of our clients, so that we can get their views heard as part of government's plans for the upcoming fiscal year. And before I go any further, let me also use this opportunity to disclaim some extreme views that have been expressed on our pre-budget survey report since it was released coming into the weekend. For the simple reason that, as I've already intimated, it is meant to solicit inputs and obviously ask for certain pointers that government can consider. And so, for example, if you then take a response on how MSMEs, for example, could be better integrated into the value chain and wider markets as a judgment on the government's poor performance in the sector, that is totally inaccurate and incorrect. Likewise, if you do, for example, take a view, as we've seen in some reportage, that planting for food and jobs has failed, whereas all that we were seeking to do was to solicit inputs for how expectations can be better met. And then of course, you are not doing justice to what we have put out there. So I also just wanted to bring that across. But more specific to your question, it is meant to obviously invite very constructive views to support government in coming up with a very responsive budget. Thank you.
All right. So you're talking about some of the reportage that you describe as misleading. Tell us, from your perspective, what were the highlights of or the takeaways based on the interactions you had with the business leaders? What were the sticking points?
Thank you. So, for example, respondents expected government to be a bit more intentional about their revenue mobilization efforts. We note quite a number of innovative measures put in place, for example, by the Ghana Revenue Authority recently. But these are yet to really take firm roots. And we've always spoken about the bit about extending the tax net. The question is whether we've been able to do that and do that constructively. Then again, for example, we are also looking at matters of environment, social, and governance, which is at the heart of government's effort to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. And how has the government therefore rallied around to satisfy economic participants when it comes to tackling issues of procurement, malpractices, and corruption? Then we also talk about, for example, the steps being taken by government to tackle the Galamsey menace, which obviously is impacting the production cost of our respondents, particularly in terms of getting access to wholesome water supply, for example. So these were some of the key highlights that came from the survey.
I want us to talk about the IMF program because it appears the future of our economy is dependent on how the negotiations go. Do you get the sense from the business community they are upbeat about this program and its potential impact on the economy?
They are cautiously hopeful from the respondents. They are cautiously hopeful because at this point, with being denied access to the international capital markets and others. The expectation is that the conversation with the IMF can be concluded soon to restore policy credibility and confidence in our economy, so that businessmen and captains can plan more confidently and with certainty on their plans for the coming year. So clearly, the expectation was that the IMF program can be concluded very, very quickly, so that it will restore some sustainability and credibility to the way we manage our financial affairs.
One of the challenges we have faced as a country is raising revenue, and the e-levy has not yielded the expected results. Right now, there are calls on government to review it. I'm also reading from your survey, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the business leaders were concerned about too many taxes. So then, how do we raise revenue if that's their concern?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that's a catch-22. But then again, as we all note, there are external headwinds that are fighting against the economy. So, for example, the IMF itself has reduced the projected global economic GDP growth from 4.4 to 3.2%. And that itself is very telling in terms of how they expect the matters to do with energy pricing and etc. to impact various economies around the world. In our case, if you look at the petroleum prices at the pump, it has gone up very, very steeply over the last few months. And that has obviously affected the cost of production for a number of respondents. Likewise, if you look at some of these levies, the thinking is that there could be some immediate measures to bring some relief in that respect. I mean, a lot of actors, for example, in the consumer industrial markets, will tell you that even though they are trying as much as possible to also participate in enhancing local production, quite a significant portion of their inputs are still sourced from outside. And for that matter, if there is no attempt to kind of adjust the import levy regime, it will continue to militate against their margins and, of course, their profitability. Likewise, e-levy, the respondents were very, very, very vocal to the extent that somehow it is adjusted downwards. Not to say that it is not useful, but that it should be adjusted downwards so that at least it can restore patronage to the pre-e-levy introduction levels.
Based on the survey, what are the recommendations to government?
Good question. Government is clearly being enjoined to be very creative and innovative in the upcoming budget preparation and submission. It cannot be business as usual. We all know that these are usual times. And that is why, for example, the recommendation is for government to be very innovative in pushing ahead with its ESG agenda to tackle some of the concerns such as galamsey and corruption, all of which impact on the poverty alleviation agenda in the SDGs. Likewise, people are also expecting that government can use technology-driven tools, for example, to optimize road tolls. Because if you are going to sustain our road infrastructure efficiently, we are going to need more revenue. Whereas the previous regime was a bit labor-intensive and time-consuming, government can be very innovative around this. Likewise, there has to also be a way of introducing some internal measures to ensure that government is able to use data from withholding VAT returns to enforce compliance.
All right, Andy Akoto, who is Head of Markets and Advisor at KPMG, joining us on the Marketplace. Appreciate your time and thank you. Now, finally...